Well, hey everybody. It's the last week of February, and while we have a nice sunny day today, we still have a lot of sand and gravel on our local roads, and we have snow melting on the sides of the roads, which could cause spray to get all over our Model A. So we're going to have to wait till we get a little closer to the official start of spring before we take our cars out. The sand and gravel could kill your paint job around here. So while we have a nice sunny day, I thought I would take the time to restore some of my recent swap meet purchases. If you watched my Turlock Swap Meet video, then you know that I purchased this flywheel housing. We checked it out real good, made sure it wasn't cracked. I think it's a good solid one, but it's got surface rust on it and some grease and dirt. So we're going to sandblast this up, get it nice and clean, and then we'll put on the old Ford green engine paint on it and make it look nice and sharp. We're going to chase all the threads to get all the threads nice and cleaned out. This will be ready to go on one of my spare engines. So we're going to do this one first. And then a couple years ago, I purchased a extra carburetor that was supposed to be restored and ready to go. And while I put it on the car, and the car does run pretty well with it, unfortunately, the threads where the gas line attaches, they're damaged and wore out, and no matter how tight I make that gas line connection, it weeps gasoline, which is obviously something we can't have. We can't have the gasoline weeping out of that as we're going down the road. So for a couple of bucks, I bought a replacement top half of a carburetor. We're going to clean this up as well and get it nice and pretty, and then we'll transfer all the pieces from this one to this one, and hopefully these threads will make a tight, secure connection. So we're going to fix this up and replace it on the top part of this carburetor. And then also you saw in my Turlock video that I purchased an auto light manifold heater, which is this part right here. We're going to sandblast this up, get it cleaned up, and then mount a new intake manifold to it, and we'll get this all machined up so that the ports are all exactly straight and smooth, and get this ready to go on the car as well. So come along for a restoration tour here, and we'll show you how we do it. I went to the local home improvement store and bought myself two 50-pound bags of sand. For sandblasting, you want it to be screened through 30 mesh, and then you also need it to be kiln dried so that there's no moisture that will plug up your nozzle. "20 years ago, when I was actively restoring my cars, I purchased this centro-pneumatic sandblaster from Harbor Freight Tools. The canister will hold about 75 pounds of sand, or about a bag and a half. I've used it for over 20 years, and it works just as good as today as when it was brand new. I built this sandblasting backstop to catch the sand, which allows you to scoop it up and use it a second time if you wish. You do need to screen it before you put it back in the canister and remove any contaminants that might plug up your nozzle. Trying to use the sand more than twice, you'll discover the sand becomes pulverized and it gets awful dusty. So twice is about all I recommend you try to use the sand. Having the appropriate personal protection equipment is critical when you're sandblasting. You want a nice, thick, long-sleeve shirt to protect your arms from ricocheting sand. A respirator is absolutely critical. That silica dust can really tear up your lungs and cause you all kinds of health problems. So make sure you have an approved respirator. Get yourself a nice sandblasting hood, which will protect your neck and your face from ricocheting sand. And then you need a nice thick pair of leather gloves to keep from sandblasting your own skin off your fingers. Once your air compressor is fully charged, then you open the valve to pressurize your sand cylinder, and you're ready to go. Okay, we're done sandblasting. Man, what a dirty, dusty job that is. Can't wait to hit the showers after you sandblast. Well, you go to a swap meet, you buy your rust, you never know what you're going to get. So we bought 3 pieces here. The flywheel housing is great, no cracks. This is going to work out really nice. Our exhaust manifold is also perfect, no flaws in this at all, so we're happy with this. Our carburetor top, however, is not going to be usable. Once we sandblasted all the rust off, we discovered that these mounting holes are stripped out. Somebody put a helicoil in one side. The other side needs one, but I'm not going to bother to do that. And the other thing that once I got all the rust off of it, I discovered is this throttle linkage hole is pretty elongated. So when you put the throttle linkage in there, there's an awful lot of play in the hole. That means we're going to have a vacuum leak and the car is not going to run very well. So this replacement top has got more problems than the one I was hoping to replace. So this is going to go into the scrap metal pile. So we got 2 out of 3 purchases that are usable. I only paid a couple of dollars for this one, so it's no big deal. We'll just toss that one and try and find a better one once we go to the next swap meet. We're going to put some paint on this now to protect these. We'll use the Ford engine green paint on the flywheel housing, and then I have some high heat manifold paint. This is supposed to be good to 2,000 degrees, which we'll put on our exhaust manifold, and hopefully that'll stay on there for the foreseeable future and keep it from rusting up. So that should be nice and pretty when we're done. So let's shoot some paint and we'll just about be finished. Okay, other than taking this to a machine shop and making sure these ports are perfectly smooth and level, this is done, ready to go back on the car. Turned out pretty nice. Here's our flywheel housing, turned out beautiful, looks as good as new. She's ready to go on one of my spare engines. Well, I hope you enjoyed coming along on this short restoration tour. We're anxiously awaiting the arrival of spring and the ability to get the cars out of the garage and back out on the road. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. It really does help the channel.